There we go. So hello, everybody. What we're looking at today is a level 2 writing exam. As normal, we have just under an hour to complete it. However, this exam, we are allowed 1 hour and 10 minutes. So as always, I am recording this one for the YouTube channel because I will be working through it fairly quickly. The first thing that I'm going to recommend is my favourite piece of equipment, paper and a pen. Because if you're writing anything, it's always really useful to make some notes beforehand so that when you are writing, you don't suddenly forget what you're writing. You can just go back to your list. It's the same thing when I go to the supermarket. If I don't have a list of things to buy, I buy crazy things. So, as with all of the other remote invigilated exams that you will do online at home, you will be sent your link 48 hours in advance for you to be able to test your technology, make sure everything works. You will be given your key code, which you just copy from the email and put it into the box and click OK. Check that it's the right level and the right exam. Always helps. Make sure that your name is correct as well, because if there are any problems with your name, we need to know before your certificates are claimed because we can't change your name afterwards. So please tell us if anything is spelled incorrectly. As always, there is a checklist that we should read. Don't just click OK. Always check and make sure we are the person named on the assignment. The work is all our own and there won't be any AI or Googling for answers. No automated proofreading tools. So if you have autocomplete, needs to be switched off. If you have Grammarly, needs to be switched off. It's especially important in this exam because you get marks for your spelling, punctuation and grammar. So if we're happy, we click OK and we go. Right. 1 hour, 10 minutes. We have 55 minutes. We can do this. The maximum mark for the paper is 44. As always, we need to be scoring at around 56% in order to get a pass rate. I think on this paper, it is 26 marks we need to score. So it might be slightly higher, 57%. This is an English lesson, not a maths lesson. So 56% roughly in order to pass this exam. And the main difference between this one and the exam we looked at yesterday, no dictionaries are allowed in this exam. So we are being asked to write 2 pieces of text, one being an article, one is an email. The first one, the subject will be talking about the age at which we start to learn to drive. The second will be about workplace contacts. Okay, I'm sure it will give us more detail on these as we go. So the first question says, you have 35 minutes to plan, write and proofread your response. Complete the activity in the space provided. So we can see we have the ability, it's not quite as complex as most sort of word processing documents like Word or Docs, but you do have the ability to change your font size, to make it bold, italic, underline, left align, central, right align, to do indents, to change your font. You wouldn't get any marks for changing your font. I can't see why you would want to. But things like the aligning of your text can make a difference, and font size as well. Only a minimal difference, but still. Okay, so it tells us the minimum age for driving in the UK is 17 years old. Some people think new drivers should not drive after dark. Write an article giving your views on whether or not the age should be lowered. And then we are given 3 specific points to write about. So, as always, if you've seen me doing this before, I will always put those 3 points into the text. Oh, clumsy fingers. I will have at the beginning some form of introduction, and at the end I will have some form of conclusion. And this is, again, it's part of my planning. It's so I don't have to keep scrolling up and down and up, and I have the information where I need it. Okay, so we have it specified that this is going to be an article. So I need to think about what should an article look like? Well, if I bought a newspaper today, the main thing on the front page, the biggest letters ever, are the headline. It's the thing that gives us an idea of what the document is about. So I need to include some kind of headline. And again, I am writing the word as an aid memoir to help me remember. I also note that if I'm writing an article, the only other important thing that I need to remember about how it looks is to write by and then your name underneath. Oh, that's it. So we will have our headline at the top. We have the words by Alex Thompson. We get 1 mark for having that headline. We get another mark for writing by and then our name, for attributing it to ourselves. Okay, that's a good start. Now, I don't know the content. I don't know what words I will use for my headline yet, but I need to remember. So I've just written the word headline to help me remember. So my introduction, how am I going to respond to this? I'm going to start by responding to this phrase. Some people think that new drivers should not drive after dark. So I'm going to start my introduction by saying, in an article published last week, it was mentioned that some people think new drivers should not drive after dark. As a driver myself, I'm not sure I entirely agree with this statement, because at the moment I'm not sure I agree. I do think maybe 17 is potentially a little bit young to learn to drive, but again, your opinion on this, it doesn't matter whether you say it's too young or too old. We should start learning to drive at 10 years old. It doesn't matter as long as you're able to express it. So, as a driver myself, I'm not sure I entirely agree with this statement. In my eyes, so in my opinion, the age at which we can learn to drive, checking my spelling as I go, is the law that needs to be looked into or examined or changed. But as an introduction, it gives the reader an idea of what perspective, what point of view I'm looking at. So driving after dark, not a problem. Driving at 17, I have many teenage students who learn to drive at 17, and I am terrified for them all. Things like the introduction of black boxes and, monitoring equipment is very useful. However, we do see an increase in the number of young drivers getting into accidents. So that worries me. So the next thing, I need to explain what age I think is appropriate. I think that at 17 years old, we are capable of doing many wonderful things. However, I'm not entirely sure driving is one of them. Now, I'm going to use some facts or statistics. However, during my exam, I can't look anything up. I can't Google, I can't use my phone, so I will invent my statistics. I'm going to say something like the 63% of road collisions in the UK are caused by drivers aged 17 to 19. It does not matter that this information is not real or is incorrect. This is not what they are marking us on. They are just looking entirely on how well we communicate this information. 63% of road collisions in the UK are caused by drivers aged 17 to 19. I wonder if raising the age by just 1 year could impact those statistics and perhaps reduce the number of accidents amongst younger drivers. Okay, I've made my opinion clear on the age. What are the advantages of learning to drive at a young age? We all know that younger brains may be slightly more able to pick up new information. You know, when we're a child, we soak in information from all over, from speaking and writing and walking, everything. So what could be? We all know that we all know that younger brains may be slightly more able. It feels a bit clumsy, but that's one of the things that we can check when we proofread it. Because if I sit and think, I will drive myself crazy and I will get stuck and I won't be able to go any further. Move on, we can always return to it. So, in fact, I'm going to do exactly that. I will finish that point. I'm going to say whether or not nighttime lessons should be compulsory. When I learned to drive, I rarely had any lessons after dark, which, looking back now, I think was a mistake. Driving for the first time and having to remember to turn on my lights, and adjust my eyes to the glare from other cars was difficult, although it's less of a problem now because everything's automatic. Driving for the first time and having to remember to turn on my lights and adjust my eyes to the glare from other cars was difficult. I was terrified the first time I drove at night. It's even worse in bad weather. It's even worse when it's dark and raining too. So I'm trying to use some exclamation marks just to show that I understand a range of different punctuation marks. Also to give a bit of emphasis, a little bit of power behind what I'm saying. Okay, what's my word count? 204. So I still need to write a conclusion and complete this where my brain went. So let me see if I can look at that again. Describe the advantages of learning to drive at a young age. The only advantage I can think of for learning to drive at a young age is that younger brains or younger people's brains may be slightly more able, maybe slightly more malleable, maybe slightly, the young people's brains may be able to pick up and absorb new information. The only advantage I can think of for learning to drive at a young age is that younger people's brains may be able to pick up and absorb new information easier than us old folks. So by saying that, I'm sort of implying that the other people reading this text are, I'm referring it to as us. So it's like that direct address. It's making them feel somewhat included. Us makes us sound like a group. Okay. So again, let's have a look at the word count. 223. Okay, my conclusion. So I've said we should maybe be older. I've said there is one is that a good enough reason to keep the age limit at 17? I think not. Wonderful. So what I've done there is used a rhetorical question by saying, is that a good enough reason to keep the age limit at 17? But then I've answered it. I've answered it myself. So again, it's showing a range of punctuation correctly used. We've used rhetorical questions. Let's see if there's anything else we can do to really boost the mark. Okay, our conclusion. No matter how mature you may be at 17, learning to drive is a serious commitment. I think the safety of other road users in fact, I think the roads would be safer if we had fewer boy races. So boy races, a very informal term for people who drive like Schumacher. I think the roads would be safer if we had fewer boy racers on the tarmac. Okay, 270 words. Now, I need to think about what will my headline be. So again, I'm thinking I could ask a rhetorical question to make my readers think. So something like, is 17 too young to drive? Oh, it's gone small. Need a capital letter, beginning of that. Is 17 too young to drive? Because then we see that and we're thinking about the answer to that question. So it's good for making the reader feel, again, quite involved. Now, because I have answered all of those points, I checked a few things before I started. So I checked the format. So have I included everything to make it look like an article? Headline by Alex Thompson, 2 marks. Have I used paragraphs? Yes. Have I got a clear beginning? So yes, I have an introduction. Have I mentioned the 3 points that they asked me to write about? Yes. And have I got an end? Yes. Okay. So looking okay so far. Have I met the word count? 275. Okay. At this point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to move to question 2. Because when I then come back to look at question 1, I will have relatively fresh eyes and I may find it easier to spot any mistakes. It's more important to answer both questions with as much information as possible and then use any time left over to correct and change, rather than have one perfect document and the other one half written. Do them both rough, then go back and use the rest of your time to change them. In fact, I've had it this week. A learner missed out on a writing exam by 2 marks because they weren't able to finish the second piece. Okay, it happens. If you want them, I am always happy to send out practice papers so that you can sit, you can time yourself, practice, you know, if you're not a big typer, make sure that that doesn't slow you down. There's lots of practice that I'm happy to send out if you want to have a go. So this next one, it says we are writing an email, and thankfully they have given us a lovely template. Now, again, there are 2 things that they want to see from us to ensure that we score marks for the format. The first one being that we write in the email address that we are given. They will also want us to include something in the subject line as well. And then they will want us to say hello and goodbye to the person to whom we are writing. Okay, this says Career Loop. We are an international company that helps people make professional contacts by sharing news and updates through email. Let us connect you with people from your industry from around the world. Write an email introducing yourself. And then we have 3 points to write about. And we're given an email address, but not the name of a person to write to. So I put those 3 points on here. Okay, now when I've done examples of this one before, I've used my real job. I'm not going to do that this time to show you that you can just use your imagination. I'm going to say that I work in sales. Why not? Big business company sales. So if I'm writing the email, I don't have a name of somebody to write to. So how do I address it? Now, in this case, because it's to do with work, it should be relatively professional. But at the same time, we are being asked to write about ourselves and make connections. And therefore, I think there should be a certain amount of informality, or at least friendliness to it. We want to seem like not only professional people, but like approachable as well. Okay, so if I have a think about what's the kind of thing that I'm going to be writing about? This is where my pen and paper come in handy. What am I going to say to myself about myself? Obviously, I'm going to talk about my name. I'm going to say where in the UK I'm based. I'm going to explain my job title. Maybe my responsibilities. Responsibilities. Oh, dear me, responsibilities. Don't worry, if you're making notes, nobody's going to check your spelling. Describe your workday routine in sales. So it's going to be checking the number of sales. It's going to be calling potential customers, or being in charge of people who call potential customers. I'm going to say that I'm doing staff reviews. And this could be similar for any office job. That might do. Explain how international work connections would benefit you. So it could, learning how somebody else does the same job in another country could be beneficial, because I could learn about how to improve my procedures. It could lead to what they call B2B contacts, business to business contacts. We may find that, if I'm talking to somebody else in the same industry, their business is able to help mine. We're able to sell each other products, something like that. What else? How else could international connections benefit you? Could also be good for future job prospects, looking for, if you wanted to leave your business and move to another company. So I've made, I don't think you'll be able to see very much, but just a few notes explaining just a few things, because otherwise I think I would forget. So I'm getting them out of my head onto paper first. Okay, so introductory email, because that's what I'm doing. I'm introducing myself. So if we're not given the name of the person that we're writing to, there's a couple of different things that we could do. We could either address it to somebody by their job title, or we could go for a generic, sort of unspecified greeting, but they do tend to be a little more informal. For example, if you just said hello, it's a little bit informal. So, dear, let's have a look. Let us connect to you. Okay, so if they're sending this to another person in my career, so it could be to another salesperson. And if we are both salespeople, you could say fellow, like you are fellow students, fellow teachers. So fellow means the same as myself. So dear fellow salesperson. Now, because I don't know their name, that means that my ending will always be yours faithfully. If we don't know their name, we have to have faith that they will reply. Whereas if we do know their name, then we can be, then there's more of a relationship, and we can be sincere with each other. So we would say yours sincerely. I always think if I remember one of them, then that automatically knocks out the other one. So I have to have faith. I must believe that the person will respond to me. I don't know them, so I have to have faith. Okay, as always, we will have some form of introduction and then some form of conclusion at the end. Now, I think for this one, the conclusion and that first point are going to sort of be as one, because as an introduction, the first thing I would do is I would introduce myself. And that is what we were being asked to do in the first paragraph. That's fine. So my name is Alex and I work in sales in the UK. I currently work for a large provider of DVD players and electric guitars. Could be anything. We sell all over the UK and have some international contacts as well. So you can see I am not writing the truth. The only thing that I've written that's the truth is my name is Alex. Everything else is from my imagination. I don't work in sales. I don't work for a large provider of electric guitars and DVD players. I don't have many international contacts. So it does not have to be the truth. We sell all over the UK and have some international contacts as well. I lead a team of 35 sales executives who are always working on improving their customer relations and building networks with other retailers. We ship directly, we ship our products directly most of our sales are to other UK businesses. However, we are looking to expand over the next few months. I would love to be involved in overseas sales. 110 words. We're already nearly halfway there and we've only written one part. Describe my workday to routine. I cycle to the office around 7:30 a.m. Again, this is not the truth because I don't have a bike. I cycle to the office around 7:30 a.m., grab a coffee and get started. I try my best to invent ways to motivate my team into making the most sales ever. They are all commission based, so they earn more money when they sell products. But if you can make it into a competition, it can be a lot more enjoyable. Just thinking, when I worked in an office many, many years ago, it could get tiring. And therefore, as a manager in this scenario, in this situation, I'm thinking, what would I do to help people make lots of sales? I'll try to make it fun. Let's check the word count, 165, okay? So how would international work connections benefit you? I would love to meet other sales managers. Did I call myself a sale manager? No, I just said I work in sales. I would love to meet other sale managers from across Europe and the wider world to see how your processes work in order to integrate our business with a, not say a wider market, with an international market. We need to know as much as is possible. I consider my professional contacts to be very important and can be, oh, here's a nice phrase, mutually beneficial, meaning we can help each other. So mutually means together, beneficial, good things happen. So I consider my professional contacts to be very important and can be mutually beneficial Conclusion. I look forward to hearing from any professionals within a similar line of business who may be interested in expanding their professional circle, basically meeting more friends, but doing it on a professional, a business level rather than personal. Okay, we're on 233 words. So obviously the first one, I went over the word count. This one is a little bit under. Now, it wouldn't impact us greatly unless we were writing under 100 words. That's when things really, when the mark can be massively impacted. Now, I said that I'd written this. Obviously, I don't work in sales. Don't think. I worked in WH Smith's when I was 17. Does that count? Long time ago. Never worked in sales. So I've tried to do this from my imagination, but I don't actually know anything about the business. If I was writing this based on my real life experience, I would find this much easier. But I've done it this way in order to show to you and to prove that it can be done, and B, the exam board will not fail me for lying. They would fail me for not writing properly, not writing enough, for not completing the piece, for answering a different question. But they will not fail me for not telling the truth. So you can use your imagination. I'm disappointed. I like it when I have a complaint. I like it when they ask me to write a complaint because I can become angry and emotional and dramatic. Alas, these two pieces are, neither are complaints. So I would always write it based on your experience. So even if you're unemployed currently, base it on a job you have had in the past. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if you know a lot about a particular industry, write it about that. It's entirely, if you want to write that you are an international model, fine. If you want to say that you are a wrestler or a sports star or pop star, fine. But make sure what you're writing is well written. Paragraphs, capital letters, punctuation. Does it make sense? Are the words in the right order with the right word endings? So it's up to you how you answer this question, but you will never be penalised for lying. Okay, I'm going to go back. I've written what I can for that second one. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the first question again. Now, I mentioned that I would be doing this in super quick time today. I have seen these exam papers before. So there is a reason why I am able to do them so quickly. If you gave me a normal exam paper, I would probably be able to do them all right. But I'm doing this quickly for you as an example so that you can see how to best answer the questions. This one is well rehearsed, but it means because of that, I'm able to do it quicker. So I read the question back. Don't just read it once and answer, read it again. Because if you have done anything wrong, if you have misunderstood anything, now is the time when it should become obvious. The minimum driving age in the UK is 17 years old. Some people think that new drivers should not drive after dark. So it's two separate points. The age is 17. Some people think they shouldn't drive after dark. Okay. Give your views. Write an article giving your views on whether the driving age should be lowered. Right. Now I'd highlighted that, and I've actually not really responded to that. I've said about raising the age. In fact, I'm going to make it clear that I have responded to that. In my eyes, the age at which we can learn to drive is, the law that needs to be looked into. That's chunky. That's grammatically, that's a bit, it's not very smooth. In my eyes, the age at which we learn to drive should be raised to 18 at a minimum. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why we go back and check the questions, to make sure there's nothing we've misunderstood or nothing we've missed. We'll stop. So have I explained what I think is a good age? I have. I actually mentioned once here, 18 is good. And then here, I've said 17 is bad. Okay. Have I described the advantages of driving at a young age? The only advantage I can think of for driving at a young age is, okay, I've answered that. Do I think nighttime driving lessons should be compulsory? So, I haven't actually stated that. I've said that driving in the dark is scary, dangerous. We need to remember things. Nighttime lessons should be a part of the, I can't think of the right word, curriculum for driving. So it should be included. Same as motorway driving and bad weather driving and ice and snow. Okay. Right, so I've covered all of those. Let me check. Does it look like an article? Do I have a headline? Yes. Do I have an attribution? Yes. Excellent. So now I'm going to read it back to myself very slowly. Doesn't matter if during your exam you're reading it out loud, the person who, obviously you get the video that gets sent off to the exam board. As long as you're not talking to somebody else in the room, they're fine. Normally beforehand you do it's called a room scan. You show with your mobile phone that there is nobody else in the room, and then your phone is watching you do the exam. Better than having somebody grumpy walking around and looking over, making sure you've not got answers written on your arm. Okay, so I'm going to read this back very slowly. In an article published last week, it was mentioned that some people think that new drivers should not drive after dark. As a driver myself, I'm not sure I entirely agree with this statement. In my eyes, the age at which we learn to drive should be raised to 18 at a minimum. Okay. Now I feel like I've mentioned one thing and then said however, and then addressed something else. So new drivers should not drive after dark. As a driver myself, I'm not sure I agree with this statement. In my eyes, it is more important that the age at which we learn to drive should be raised to 18 at a minimum. So I've said driving after dark, okay. I think it's more important that we should be 18 years old minimum. I think that at 17 years old, we are capable of doing many wonderful things. However, I'm not entirely sure driving is one of them. 63% of road collisions in the UK are caused by drivers aged 17 to 19. Please, as I'm reading this, if you see any mistakes, put them in the chat. Let me know, because our eyes and our hands, our brains don't always work at the same speed. If you can see any mistakes that I haven't yet corrected, please stick them in the chat, show me. So I wonder if raising the age by just 1 year could impact those statistics and perhaps reduce the number of accidents amongst younger drivers. Okay, that sounds all right. The only advantage I can think of for learning to drive at a young age is that younger people's brains may be able to pick up and absorb new information easier than us old folks. So I'm trying to make it sort of conversational. Is that a good enough reason to keep the age limit at 17? I think not. So just because they've got good brains doesn't mean that they're the best age to be driving. Okay. When I learned to drive, so a personal story, an anecdote is a technique. When I learned to drive, I rarely had any lessons after dark, which, looking back now, I think was a mistake. Driving for the first time and having to remember to turn on my lights and adjust my eyes to the glare from other cars was difficult. I was terrified the first time I drove at night. It's even worse when it's dark and raining too. Nighttime lessons should be a part of the official. I'm going to change that to driver training. No matter how mature you may be at 17, learning to drive is a serious commitment. I think the roads would be safer if we had fewer boy racers on the tarmac. Okay. So again, it doesn't matter if we truly believe this or if it is entirely from thin air. It doesn't matter. Right, now I do the same thing with the second text. So I read the question back. We are an international company that helps people make professional contacts by sharing news and updates through email. Let us connect you with people from your industry from around the world. So this particular question, it doesn't say whether I'm writing this to Career Loop or whether I'm writing it and it will be like passed on to somebody else in my industry. I've assumed it says that there's a new contact that based on that, I would assume that I'm writing it to another person in my industry. So have I told them all about myself? Yes, in my opening paragraph. My name is Alex and I work in sales, and then have given more details. Have I described my workday routine? Aha, so maybe this is where I could add some more words to get closer to the word count. I cycle to the office, grab a coffee, get started, motivate my team. I have managerial control and responsibilities over the whole team, and no 2 days are the same. Okay. I have managerial control and I knew I'd spell that wrong. Responsibilities over the whole team, and no 2 days are the same. There we go. All right, so have I described my workday routine? I have. Have I explained how international connections would benefit me? Yes. So I even use the word beneficial related to the word benefit. I mentioned the international market. I talk about, how having professional contracts could be good, could be beneficial. Okay, so I've answered all 3 of those points. Also, have a look at the fact it's an email. So have I completed the address? Yes. Have I given a subject line? Yes. And the final one, have I said hello appropriately? Yes. I don't know their name. I've used their job title. Have I finished it correctly at the end? Yes, excellent. We get marks for all of these things. Okay. Now, I said earlier that if I start losing my voice, it's not without reason. So let's just read this back slowly one last time and look for any mistakes. Same thing. If you guys in the chat see any mistakes, please type them in. My name is Alex, capital letters, brilliant, and I work in sales in the UK. I currently work for a large provider of DVD players and electric guitars. We sell all over the UK and have some international contacts as well. I lead a team of 35 sales executives, it's their job titles, so it's capital letters, who are always working on improving their customer relations and building networks with other retailers. Most of our sales are to other UK businesses. However, we are looking to expand over the next few months. I would love to be involved in overseas sales. I cycle to the office around 7:30 a.m, grab a coffee and get started. I try my best to invent ways to motivate my team into making the most sales ever. They are all commission based, so they earn more money when they sell products. They earn more money when they sell more products. But if you can make it into a competition, it can be a lot more enjoyable. I have managerial control and responsibilities over the whole team, and no 2 days are the same. I would love to meet other sales managers from across Europe and the wider world to see how your processes work. In order to integrate our business with an international market, we need to know as much as is possible. We need to know as much as possible. I consider my professional contacts to be very important and can be mutually beneficial. I look forward to hearing from any professionals within a similar line of business who may be interested in expanding their professional circle. Okay, so how many words did that end up being? I know I added a few, took a few away. 249, fine. That's not a problem. For this one, you'll notice there isn't actually a stated word count, but can use our common sense. If this is worth 22 marks and we are being asked to write 250 words, and this is worth 22 marks, we should assume it should be a similar length of text. So we don't have time to go through the entire mark scheme and mark both of these, but I can guarantee that both of these would be a good pass. We have, and these are the key points, written to, or close enough to, the word count above on one, and I think it was 249 for the other. You get a mark for that. We have checked the format of the text. Do they look appropriate to what we're being asked to write? Does the email look like an email? Does the article look like an article? It could also be a letter or a report. There are other document types. So is it the right length? Have we got a beginning, middle and end? So have we introduced our subject, gone into detail, and then ended by tying things off nicely? We've not left our reader wondering what's going on. So for example, with the article, I just had a statement to close it. With the email, I've said, get in touch. I've asked them to make contact with me. That is what I want from the person I'm contacting. There are, for each piece, a maximum of 9 marks available for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So that's 18 marks in total over both pieces. So you can get 9 marks if you scored full on spelling, punctuation and grammar in the email, and 9 marks on the article. So you can, if you find that one of your pieces you think is stronger or better than the other, it's the overall mark. We add everything together at the end. Ensuring that you finish your first drafts. So get those ideas out of your head, make some notes. It really helps, especially the email about the professional contacts. I wrote literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things. I didn't use them all. I don't have to. But just using them meant that once I got to a stage where I'm going, look, all my answers are there. All my ideas are right next to me. So that comes in very, very handy. for just helping you get rid of, say, writer's block. Using your own experience is always going to be beneficial because you'll find it easier to write. However, again, I've shown you today that you can entirely make up your story and you can still write a decent enough answer. Apart from that, is there anything else you get marked on? So you get 3 marks for spelling on each paper, 3 marks for punctuation, 3 marks for grammar. You get your formatting marks, which is 2. You get more marks for paragraphing, for ensuring that you have clear delineated paragraphs. Complex sentences as well. At level 2, you should be writing at least, I think it says 2 complex sentences. Now, there is a video on the YouTube channel which does explore sentence types. Here we go, simple, compound and complex sentences. So that one goes into a lot more detail if you're unsure about those. But if we want to see examples, I know. Okay. In order to integrate our business with the international market, we need to know as much as possible. Okay, so this one, we need to know as much as possible is a sentence on its own that is grammatically correct. However, this does not make sense on its own. You need to have the two together to make sense. It's like the bit that's highlighted is just extra information. If I wrote that as a sentence with a full stop, it would not be grammatically correct. If I have a look in the other document, I know I put some in here because I was thinking about it at the time. I think that at 17 years old, we are capable of doing many wonderful things. That is a simple sentence. We've got however as a beautiful conjunction. So that one is a compound. I wonder if that one is another. No, reducing compound. When I learned to drive, I rarely had any lessons after dark, which, looking back now, I think was a mistake. So if we look at this sort of added detail, so I could say, when I learned to drive, I rarely had any lessons after dark, which, and I think it was a mistake. What I've actually done is I've added some extra detail in there. Can't see any other examples. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. But if you're unsure about complex sentences, there is that video on there. So it shows you, it goes through simple sentences, it goes through compound, which is essentially 2 simple ones stuck together, and then we talk about complex. And there are lots and lots of examples on there. So and potentially some, oh look, it even shows you. This is the mark scheme for the exam that we've just completed. You need to write at least 2 accurately demarcated complex sentences, and that will score you 1 mark. Do you use paragraphs properly? That will score you another mark. So you can see how everything builds together to give you your overall mark. And when we get feedback from the exam board, and I've said this before, if you pass first time, that is incredible. I am proud of you like you wouldn't believe. If you don't pass first time, the feedback we get is wonderful because it says exactly what areas you still need to work on before trying again. So I will stop sharing that screen for now. I shall stop recording and I shall open the floor for any questions from live learners.